questions right now. But Randy wanted to hit on something. And I'm going to let Randy hit on that, and then we're going to start asking questions. You got this, Pimpin'.
And so just want to tackle, just as the church thinks long-term, like in combating these viewpoints that exalt themselves against the mind of Christ. I like.
Lift the mic over.
Y'all hear me? I don't want to be too loud.
You too cool for school. Come on.
But I'm convinced that the church, especially here in America, we really need to grapple with this idea that has been around for centuries, that basically that a very latent, innate belief that white folks are somehow, in some way, shape, or form, superior or better than people of color, black folks in particular. And that's not a wild idea, right? Like, if you look at segregation, that's what segregation was about. You go back to the Dred Scott case in the Supreme Court, that ruling, a black man has no rights, a white man is bound to respect. Because white people are inherently superior. That's what slavery was about. We can treat people like this because they are inferior. When you have that sort of mindset that's been around in Western culture and in America for centuries, right? For centuries. That doesn't somehow just stop or go away like in 1968 or something when the Civil Rights Act was passed or something like that. Right? And so the church, I'm so convinced of this. The church at large truly needs to address that, and individual Christians really need to wrestle, because it's a sin like any other sin. The exalting of oneself over against another. And so when you think about the impact that's had, not just on the people who, on the very latent, base form, hold that belief, right? And consequently think themselves are better, but the people on the receiving end who inherently, on some base level, will think that they are somehow inferior and supposed to receive an unjust and oppressive treatment, namely black folks, right? So whenever something comes around that will lift up the head of an oppressed person, you best believe folks are going to look at that very seriously, like, man, this values who I am as a black person. This gives me dignity. Like we talked about the Nation of Islam a bit earlier. That was the first time, anybody ever seen Malcolm X? There's a scene there where, oh my God, that was powerful. When Malcolm X's character, Denzel Washington, he was at the helm and commanding all of these people before this police precinct where he's got his head beat in, and he did the okay, y'all go disperse now. And just looked at him at the top and everybody just left. And a young black man came up to him at this diner where the Nation of Islam folks and Malcolm were chilling. He goes in there and, forgive my language, said, "Sir, I ain't never seen no nigga talk to no policeman like that." Think about that. I've never seen a black person stand up for himself and do it with dignity. I've never seen a black man assert himself and not feel like he should be ashamed of doing so. We really got to wrestle with that thought, because we would like to think, oh yeah, that's just, those folks. But I'm convinced that the vast majority of people in this room, white, black, are affected by that belief that white folks are in some way, shape, or form superior. Black folks, we may believe in some way, shape, or form inferior. So always reaching out for something that's going to lift up our heads and give us dignity. And so that's really the great appeal with the Nation of Islam. With the 5% of the black man is God. Peace, King. You know what I'm saying? What's up, God? Peace, God.
Let me, because we didn't get a chance to really get on the 5%ers. The 5% nation was and to call them a radical split off from the Nation of Islam, that they're actually more radical than the Nation of Islam, which is hard to believe. But they believe in these teachings of, you'll hear them say, knowledge of self. 5% nation, they emphasize these supreme mathematics. They're really into science and math, and they believe that black man is God. They believe that black man is God, and creation came from black man. White people came from black man. Devil came from black man. And you will say, man, I've never heard these teachings. Have you ever heard Rakim?
Right.
Have you ever heard Big Daddy Kane? Have you ever heard of Wu-Tang Clan? Have you ever heard of Jay-Z? God MC, me, Jehovah. Jay-Z espouses 5% teachings. Nas, Godson, 5% teachings. Mos Def, Talib Kweli, on and on and on. If you've heard rap since, heck, how did I forget African Bambaataa? If you've heard a rap song in the last 30 years, you've heard 5% teachings. These teachings really grew out of, at the same time as hip-hop, and it's the black man is God. The black man is supreme. They address themselves. What up, God? What up, God? If you listen to Wu-Tang Clan, the supreme mathematics. I mean, if you listen to a Wu-Tang, if you listen to hip-hop in the last 30 years, you've heard 5% teachings. You just didn't know you were hearing 5% teachings.
And just to jump, it's so important for especially us as Christians, that's why the colorblind theology is so horrible. We need to see, God made us who we are, and it's beautiful. In His wisdom, in His sovereignty, He's made me to be a black man in America. And now that He's redeemed me, how does the gospel shine through that prism and create this beautiful light that points back to Jesus? So whenever we downplay the importance of who someone is ethnically here on earth, that's downplaying a part of who they are and opening up a door these people, they don't appreciate who God has made me to be. But the 5%ers do.
Yeah.
And so it's so important that we embrace embrace who people are and encourage them to all right, you are a strong black woman. Now what does that look like to be in obedience to Christ as that strong black woman? How does Christ shine through you in a very unique way that He isn't going to do so through somebody else? And on the flip side, you a white man. Ain't nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful too. Black is beautiful. White is beautiful. But how does the gospel inform one's whiteness? In the same way, just as it ought to inform one's blackness. When we shy away from that kind of reality and that kind of talk, we are doing ourselves and the world a great disservice.
Yeah, let's get to the question. I got a couple that I can just knock out real quick. Was W.A. Fawad a black man? Yes, he was black. He was kind of black. Beige. He was related to the DeBarge family. Was he a DeBarge? That's what I want to know. And you know what's really funny? Some of the most militant jokers I've ever met. I'm like, you can pass. You can pass. Anyway.
There is with the whole thing with the FBI, right? Because of course, they want to know, whenever you get founders that take on these militant people and they start, doing crazy stuff and affecting us around the area, the FBI actually thought that who they referred to as Master Muhammad, they thought that this guy was actually born in Turkey. They thought that he was a white man, and that's what blew my mind. It's you got a guy that's teaching you we are the original people, and you look at him man, you are.
Are we really?
I don't know whether to call you son or brother.
Can you get me a job?
So
that's but there's some doubt, but I met him once in 1990. At what point do you stop the defense of the gospel? In other words, when do you walk away from a conversation? And I'm gonna hit that one real quick. Titus chapter 3, I believe around about verse 9 and 10. It says to avoid foolish genealogies to avoid quarrels, to avoid endless arguments. Basically saying, if you're having a conversation and the person just wants to argue with you and their ears not for the gospel, said just pretty much just say, have a good day, sir. So yeah.
Just want to say too, like when you're talking about apologetics, remember you're not. If you're having a conversation with them, your job isn't to. My job is for them to say, I believe in Jesus, because it takes the Spirit to do that work. All you can do is really plant that seed and be faithful to the Scriptures when you're and avoid compromising. Because one of the things is that in the conversations with cats that's my family that are Black Hebrew Isrealites, and you'll have people that's around them like, well, that could be true, but swaying is the problem. So you're not there to try to win them. You do the work by planting the gospel, let the Spirit do its work. And God be glorified if someone accepts Jesus at that moment. But God be glorified if someone accepts Jesus 10 years later.
Real quick with the question. Don't send me the 95th Theses. Do not send me the 95th Theses. Do not send me the Nicene Creed. Do not send me the Apocrypha. Can we get some quick hitters, please? Thank you. God, scrolling. He's scrolling until 10 o'clock. Yeah, this is a really good one. What specifically in the Jehovah's Witness teaching appeals to African Americans? Because I don't know any white Jehovah's Witnesses. No, really, real talk. I ain't never met one. I'm sorry, I have never met one white Jehovah's Witness. Every Joker I know is a Jehovah's Witness is black. So for the longest, I thought that was black people. That there was no such thing as white Jehovah's Witnesses. But yeah, Dr. Evans, pontificate, please.
I've talked to quite a few Jehovah's Witnesses, and really I think that is a reaction against some of the weaknesses in the black church. And actually I would say that this is the same thing with regards to the Nation of Islam and 5% and all of these other things. I once heard somebody say that the cults are the unpaid bills of the church. And by that what he means is when the church are not addressing real needs like it ought, then people go elsewhere. And one of the common themes I hear from a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses is they say, in the traditional church, all I'm getting is platitudes and the pastor performing and hooping and everybody worshiping the pastor, and I'm not learning anything. We're not going out trying to win the neighborhood. We're frying chicken to sell money for pastors' appreciation. They like the fact that they're out there knocking on doors, sharing their faith, and that they're being taught. And I think that appeals to a lot of, because when I came from the streets, and you're right, and brother said earlier, how that a lot of these Muslim groups convert a lot of people in prison. And I had a lot of homies in and out of jail who would come back as Muslims. And one of the common things that my homies would all say is, man, what I want to go to church for and listen to some preacher spitting and sweating and hollering and swinging from the chandelier and ain't saying nothing. And so I think that when we look at these cults and these different groups, whether JWs or whatever, I think that it's a testimony to some of the weaknesses in the traditional black church.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. This is a really interesting question. Do more men find themselves engaged with these cults than women? Because it seems like I've never met a woman say that they down with BHI. So why does it seem like that the black men are being more swayed in this direction? Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I have met a number of women that are. Usually they follow their husbands into it.
Yep, that's what it is.
It is extremely male-oriented, and they have such a distorted view of masculinity that it has to be aggressive. All right? We're men of war. You know what I'm saying? We're not Christians like y'all. You come over here, I'm going to hit you in your face, or I'm going to do this. You know, that's done. They love it. All right? You're going to see it when you try and actually talk to them. They want you to cry. All right? As a Christian, like actually look at Christian cries and like read Black Hebrew Israelite, you are like a trophy on the wall. You're like a bughead. All right, they love it. All right. When it comes down to it, their masculinity, they view it as I'm supposed to break you down. All right. So now, usually they're going to actually go in groups too. All right. They're like a gang. All right. They're going to stand on the corner like a gang. It's a pack mentality. All right. And so just the same, just as the homies on the corner are the same, they find comfort in each other. They're not even going to just deal with you one-to-one on the bottom. They're going to have a reader. It's like a hype man. You know? Hebrew 12! Yeah, you got to play with flavor. Not helping it. You know, and so you have to be prepared. Sometimes you don't even go at it. Sometimes let's go do that thing over there. But, you know, but it is a masculinity issue too.
They emphasize masculinity, and unfortunately, again, what I've noticed, and that was, again, I almost slipped into Nation of Islam because the masculinity that my church portrayed to me was disgusting. You heard the joke about the gay choir musician? We had 3. I swear, folks, we had 3, and they weren't hiding it because they was getting paid. There was older men, there were deacons, and there were a couple brothers, but there was brothers that was at the church just to try to get up on ladies. So I looked at the masculinity that I saw in my church and was like, no, these cats right here, they about that life. You know, they defending their families, their husbands, they're marrying women. I didn't know married people in my church. I knew people that shacked up. You know, so men are being drawn to these cults because unfortunately the church, black and white, have not done a good job of displaying manhood. You know. Let me get to the next question. I'm getting a lot. Let's see. This one, this man is a resident theologian. I defer. He is our Athanasius. I'm just a humble armor bearer. There's this teaching, and we joke about it here, that white people are Edomites. White people are from... Okay. White people come from Esau. And then the whole Romans 9. I was watching one video. This dude, I was watching one video. The Black Hebrew Isrealite. And I was like, I'm laughing, but I shouldn't be laughing, but it's kind of funny. I'm a bad person. But he said, read Romans 9. Jacob have I loved. Esau have I hated. Stop. I hate you. He pointed at him and said, stop. I hate you. To a white man, I was like, oh my God. But it was crazy, but that's what they believe. And they use that to espouse the teaching that it's okay to hate my Anglo brothers and sisters. Well, yeah, the farthest thing. So, Dr. Evans, Romans 9, the whole Romans 9, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated, white people are from Esau, Edom, take it away. Sorry to do that to you.
Yeah, that's one of the worst cases of hermeneutical gymnastics I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, in Romans 9, the point that Paul is making is that God's election of the Israelites was based on grace and not on ethnicity. Yes, as a matter of fact, it actually proves their point is wrong, because Edom was the biological brother of Jacob, or what was it, Esau? Well, yeah, Jacob and Esau, the twins. So ethnically speaking, he's Semitic just like Jacob is. So how can he be white? Both of them, their parents was a Jew, was a Hebrew. Isaac. So how in the world can Esau be a white man when biologically his father is Ishmael, who is a Hebrew? And now if you go back to Genesis chapter 9, Genesis 10, which gives us the table of nations, it shows us that the nations were populated from Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The white races came from Japheth. It says that these were the ones who were the people of the coastland, which were the Greeks and all of those. They were the descendants of Japheth. Now, the Hebrew people were the descendants of Shem, which we get the term Semitic from. So, it's ridiculous. There's no way that you can get white people, European, from Esau, who was a Semitic descendant of the Hebrew people. So it's just utterly ridiculous. And actually, if you look at Romans 9 in this context, it actually proves their point. It actually disproves what they're arguing. Because the point of that whole passage is to show that God chose by grace and not based upon Esau's Hebrew ethnicity.
Next question. I'm trying to sort them out in order and ignore the garbage that I'm getting. You know who you are, Mike John Michael Hannafy. Social Security number 3.
Go ahead and ask that question, Armor Bearer.
You realize I have a microphone, right? All right, thank you. Should I still listen to 90s music, 90s hip-hop that you mentioned that drops the 5% teachings and the God MC, Rakim and Jay-Z? Jay-Z will just call himself God. You know, so should we listen to Jay-Z? Should we listen to Nas, who spits the 5% Jew? Should we partake? Should we suck from the devil's? Go ahead. Should we? That's about the question. Should believers? Should Wadsworth, who's a huge Jay-Z fan, huge Jay-Z fans, and it has been clinically proven that Nas is better than Jay-Z, but that's a whole other thing. You two, anyway, but they're both 5%, so it don't matter. Should we listen to that?
Okay, I'll just lay it out there. I'm still a fan, all right?
You're off
none
this
of these people have claimed to be saved. I don't look at movies and music for anything other than some sort of artistic entertainment. Now, if you have exalted these people higher than what you should do, you know your heart and how you lean.
Like what?
All right? Yeah. I mean, let's just...
Or Mike Hannafy with John Cougar Mellencamp.
You know where you lean. So there are certain things that I must do. Okay, again, we all have a history. All right? Listen, this might be TMI. Growing up, I went to strip clubs. All right? There are certain shows on TV you can probably watch that I have no business watching on network TV. It takes me somewhere else. All right? So now I know when I need to walk out, you can watch Scandal maybe. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it is. You're going to find whatever sin easily besets you. All right? Walk away, run, do whatever you need to do. But that's just me. All right?
Yeah. Another, I look at passages like Romans 14 where it says, it's not my place to judge another man's servant. It's not my place. And it says, some things are a matter of conscience. Some things are just a matter of conscience. Me personally, I'm not a secular music is a sin. But there are just certain things that if I listen to, my mind is going to go everywhere from Christ. It's just the truth. So, I still listen to secular music. I listen to Nas more than Jay-Z because Nas is a better rapper than Jay-Z. But anyway, that's a whole other ball of wax. But there are certain things. There are certain things that just grieves the Holy Spirit in me. And that's just, I don't see how there's certain things. Again, not painting with a broad brush, all secular. All secular sin because, we all adults in here? Okay, all right. Adult married folk, when you get ready to do adult married folk, you ain't put no hymn song. You ain't putting on, he ain't putting on Mahalia Jackson. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I'm saying? I hope not. And so, there's counseling available. But anyway, but you know, some things are a matter of conscience. You know, read Romans chapter 14. Romans chapter 14. I mean, there are certain things that are just a matter of conscience, and the more you pursue Christ, that means you're going to be dying to some things. The closer I strive for Christ, the more I want of His Spirit, the more I seek to surrender to Christ, the more I find Him telling me I got to let stuff go. Stuff that may not necessarily be a sin. I love Hebrews. He says, lay away every sin and what? Come on, Baptist Church. Every sin and weight that so easily beset you. So there's going to be some things that aren't necessarily a sin that slow you down in running your race. And I think there's some music, there's some movie, there's some entertainment, there's some things, there's some people that will slow you down and hinder you that you just got to shake loose. And yeah, but it's not all sin. You know, I mean, I was just listening to Paid in Full. Rakim is one of those nasty rappers ever, and he spit 5% jewels all day. But I mean, I'm not going to espouse those teachings, and I'm not going to believe that stuff. So, anybody else want to touch on that real quick? Go ahead.
Did we talk about the 5%? 5% how they believe 85% of people are the ignorant ones, the blind ones. Then they believe the other 10% are the ones who are basically not only whites, but they also believe some blacks keep the 85% ignorant, and they believe that the 5% are the enlightened ones.
Yeah.
So their job is to spit that type of wisdom, and they looked at hip-hop culture as a way and a platform to actually bring about those teachings. So that's why it brought that whole movement was like straight black man, black power. It was all of that was shaped hip hop. That was the majority in hip hop. Those type of teachings.
And guess what? Everything's full circle. Hip hop music is heading back there.
Yep.
You look at the Beyonce performance, the Beyonce performance and song, wherever your opinion is on that. We have a fan over this side. Whatever your opinion is on the Beyonce performance, song, whatever your opinion is, it made news. The Kendrick Lamar, his music is winning Grammys. His performance at the Grammys, they're speaking out on social issues. So this whole pro-black agenda in hip hop music is coming back around like it did in the 80s. And I'm not saying all of it is bad. There's some truth, there's some merit to a lot of it. But my thing as believers is if we don't keep Christ front and center, everything else is a wash. The thing that made great men of old, we were chopping up about Gardner C. Taylor, who I believe is the best preacher in the last 100 years. The thing that made his ministry so powerful is, I believe it was Kyle Barth, who said, the preacher's supposed to have a Bible in one hand and a newspaper in the other. And preachers like Gardner C. Taylor, E.K. Bailey, and all these preachers who preached during the civil rights era, the thing that made their message and their ministry so powerful is it was gospel-centered, but it still spoke to the issues of today. And sadly, one of the things, soapbox minute, one of the things that I believe is we're losing in the black church or the predominantly black church or the urban churches, we're losing the prophetic voice. You look at, Frederick Douglass. Someone told me, I'm not going to say the names, if I don't mention Frederick Douglass, they're going to punch me in the face. But you look at a Frederick Douglass who was a Christian man 110%, but he spoke against the issues of that day. You look at a man like Richard Allen who started the AME Church. Not only was he a preacher, not only was he gospel-centered, not only was he reformed, he spoke out against slavery. Lemuel Hayes, Daniel Payne, oh my goodness, Absalom Jones, all these men preached the gospel, but they spoke to the social issues of the day. And the reason that black brothers especially are leaving the church is because the prophetic voice is gone. Amen. And we need to get back to speaking prophetically, speaking to the culture, speaking truth to culture by keeping Christ at the front and center. Anybody else want to hit on that? The law. Why? What do you think happened? Because it seems like King died, and the civil rights movement somewhat died with him. But the prophetic edge, the speaking truth to culture, kind of left the black church. What happened?
I wouldn't even limit it to the black church.
But historically, I can't remember what author it was, but they said in many ways, and I agree with this, the voice of conscience to the country was the black church, from slavery to king, that from slavery and the king, that whole period, the conscience of the country was the black church. No, you're wrong. We are equal. Give us, we spoke to that. So yes, there was a lot of others involved, but the primary voice to that was the black church. Go ahead.
I was saying, I just wouldn't limit you. Right, I agree with you. But I think, even as we localize it and contextualize it, Restore or our folks from Mack Avenue, we are multi-ethnic churches, right? So we just can't punt and say that's what the black churches need to be doing. Because we in the hood too. Y'all white folk, my white brothers and sisters, y'all in the hood too. Y'all in this congregation or at Mack Ave, you're right in this social media.
Damascus Road in Flint.
Yeah, Damascus. Yes, Damascus Road in Flint. And so, we need to be that prophetic voice. We need to, everybody calling out every injustice. And the thing is, as the church at large, and as these congregations represented here do this, that means at times we're going to be at odds with everybody. We're going to be at odds with unredeemed white folks.
Yeah.
We're going to be at odds with unredeemed black folks. But when we start getting pressure from those folks in whose camps we are in somewhat, right? But we're in ultimately this camp, we ought to be able to find comfort amongst each other.
Let me ask a question, because someone sent the question, piggyback. What does it mean, or what does it look like to speak prophetically to the culture with Christ at the center? What does that look like? What does that look like?
Speaking truth to power. Most of the time for oppressed people, it's that. To be totally honest, I'm going to say something that actually is really frowned upon, but
You've been warned.
Yeah. Urban sprawl, all right? When the pastor makes pretty good money and he moves out of the neighborhood, he doesn't live in the parsonage anymore, all right? He doesn't live in the community and see the people. He doesn't get pulled over anymore, all right? He doesn't do anything. Actually, he just parachutes in and he takes care, he feeds the flock, and then he drives to Birmingham. Which is nice. You know what I'm saying? He's detached now. Yeah. He doesn't, it's not even his fault all the time. He just has a blind spot that any other middle class, upper middle class person has, is that I get in my nice car and I go home. So when the city just says something small like, I'm cutting bus services off to a certain neighborhood after a certain time, all right? He still just goes home.
Yeah.
Where a number of single mothers or whoever it is are crushed just by that, all right? It seems like it's nothing to anybody, all right? No one's going to march for her. Nothing's going to happen. She's just going to get fired or whatever, and he's going to be asking, why aren't you telling me? All right? You know what I'm saying? That's going to be the situation or whatever. And what happened was that he wasn't close enough to speak truth to power of saying, no, hold on, these are small things that oppressed people deal with.
Yeah. Just to piggyback on that, it's just comfort. Comfort. It's so much. Your scream is louder when you're hungry. So now, since post-civil rights, there's not as much to shout about, so we think. So what we need to be careful to, and I'm going to ask Brian to hit this, is when speaking truth to power, when speaking out against injustice, NOI does that. Nation Islam does that. Black Hebrew Isrealites do that. Black Lives Matter does that. What makes us distinctly different, and how do we keep Christ at the center? How do we keep the gospel at the center so we don't lose that gospel distinction?